Hello everyone and welcome to my walkthrough of Board of the Rings by Delta Force Software. So this video will cover part 1 of the game. Board of the Rings, a development of the original adventure written by Fergus McNeill for Silversoft, programmed by Delta Force Software, and this is part 1. Fordo stood in the party field under the great tent. Massive amounts of food lay heaped on the groaning tables. Hundreds of gate-crashing boggits floundered helplessly under the weight of their bloated stomachs. A hole in one side of the tent served as exit. Now, as you probably already know, this is a game that's a spoof of the book The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, and as such, many of the characters from the original book have alternative names, which may, in some cases, be amusing. In other cases, perhaps less so. Fordo, I may remember Frodo from the book or from the movies, and hobbits in this game are known as boggits. Let's start by trying to leave the tent out. Ancient prophecy stated that this couldn't happen yet. Okay, in this case we better wait. Fordo waited for a while. Time passed. Bimbo stood up on his chair. Now Bimbo, of course, being a spoof name for Bilbo from the original books, Frodo's uncle. Bimbo stood up in his chair at the far end of the tent. The noise quietened down to a dull roar. "My fellow boggits," he began. There was a chorus of belching from the fellow boggits. "As much as I'd love to stay and annoy you, I can't, so goodbye." There was a large explosion which killed several of the guests, and when the smoke cleared, Bimbo was gone. Fordo wandered outside. Fordo stood in the party field. A great tent had been erected and a hole in the thin fabric led inside. The road skirted the west side of the field, and beyond that stood Fag End at the end of Bogshot Row. So Fag End, in this case, being a spoof name for Bag End from the book, Bogshot being Bagshot Row from the original. Anyway, let's go back inside the tent, see what's been going on there. Fordo looked around the wreckage of the party. Broken tables and chairs lay buried under mounds of food and unconscious boggits. Gallons of ale seeped into the grass and shrapnel lay about where Bimbo's seat had been. Okay, I don't think there'll be much to do in here, so let's head on back out. And first thing to do, I think, is to visit Fag End, the home of Uncle Bimbo. So let's go west. Fordo was on the road beside the party field to the east and Fag End to the west. The road led south through the quiet village of Boggerton. Let's go west again. Fordo was now outside Bimbo's home, Fag End. A large green door led inside, while to the east lay the road. There's only one thing for it. Let's go in to Fag End. This is the first picture of the game, so some of you may recognise this picture if you're familiar with the original Melbourne house game, The Hobbit. This picture is certainly inspired by the start location from that adventure. Fordo stood in the comfortable tunnel-like hall of Fag End. A large green door opened out onto the miserable garden kept by Spam the gardener. So Spam, in this case, being Sam from the original. At this point, Fordo noticed his uncle Bimbo, and not Gandalf, but Grandalf. As he entered, Fordo heard the end of a conversation between the old wizard and his uncle. "And so we'll need to get some dense lemming to take it and dump it where old Eyeball can't get to it," said Grandalf. "But what stupid individual can we get for a suicidal folly such as this?" Bimbo stopped. They both looked at Fordo. Okay, let's see what happens next. "Catch," remarked Bimbo as he tossed a small gold ring-like object across the room. With an astonishing lack of deftness, Fordo caught it. "Ah, you will take it," smiled Grandalf. "Good, you must go to the Black Land of Dormore and destroy it. But go thou first unto Smelrond at Rivendell. And now I must go, and may see you. Bye." "Good luck, favourite nephew," called Bimbo as he and the old wizard hurried away. Fordo's boggit friends arrived. Okay, so we know our quest now. Go to the land of Dormore, or Mordor from the original book. Our first task is to go and visit not Elrond but Smelrond at his home at Rivendell rather than Rivendell. Anyway, let's exit. We've got Fordo's friends, Spam, Murky and Pimply. That's the equivalent of Sam, Merry and Pippin. Let's head east from here. Fordo was on the road beside the party field to the east and Fag End to the west. We've been here before, let's go south. Fordo was at the road junction outside the Lively Mush Inn. The east road rolled over the hills to the east, a road led south, and another led north into Boggerton itself. Okay, let's go into the Lively Mush Inn. Fordo was in the Lively Mush Inn, a small inn frequented by the yokels of Boggerton. The open door led back out onto the road. Well, I think this is just scenery, there's not much to see here. Let's head back out. And from here, let's go east. Fordo was following the east road which crossed the Shire from east to west, linking the village of Boggerton with the brand name bridge and eventually the small town of Wee. Brand name, of course, being the Brandywine Bridge, and the town of Bree having its name changed to the town of Wee in this adventure. Anyway, let's go east again. Fordo gazed at the road junction he stood at. The east road went east and west, and a smaller road plunged south into the trees. Okay, let's go south and see what happens. Okay, another picture of some rather pleasant looking trees. Fordo was travelling along the road deep in the trees of the Green Hill country. Fordo thought he could hear a horse coming along the road. Well, that's a bit concerning. I think we should hide. Deciding to take no risks, Fordo plunged into the trees and hid. Moments later, a dark rider rode by. He stopped and seemed to be sniffing the air. Then, spurring his black mount, he emitted one great and sour fart and rode on down the way. Fordo was shocked and went down into the trees to become utterly lost. Okay, let's try and find a way out of here. Fordo was in the woods. He was completely lost and quite sure that he was wandering around in circles. The tall trees above all looked the same as he gazed about. Okay, we'll try going east. Fordo was still lost in the wood and was beginning to wonder why he kept coming across the tracks of someone who wore exactly the same type of shoes as him. Yet he could not see a way out through the great trees. Well, luckily I happen to know the correct way to go from here is actually back in west. I'm still lost in the woods. And we'll go north. Aha, made a way out. Fordo looked around. He was now at Farmer Faggot's Triffid Farm. So that's Farmer Maggot from the original book. To the south stood the ancient farmhouse, while a track led off north towards the river. Okay, let's go south and visit Farmer Faggot. Fordo was seated at an old table in the farmhouse. Many barrels of ale were stacked up against one of the far walls, and he also noticed a hefty pot bubbling merrily on the stove. Let's say hello to Farmer Faggot. Farmer, hi. "You are," said Farmer Faggot, clearly from the West Country. Well, so we've got some ale here. Let's take advantage of the ale, get the ale, and let's drink some ale. Fordo drank the ale, hiccuped twice, threw up all over the place, fell over, and felt much better. Well, I think that's all we've got to see here. Let's leave Farmer Faggot's house and leave his farm. Make our way to this rather big looking bridge, the Brand Name Bridge. Fordo was on the west bank of the Brand Name River. The road led west and north, and a small track wound south through the fields to an old farm. Okay, let's go north again. Fordo stood on the western end of the Brand Name Bridge. The deep water flowed noisily below him as he looked across the east shore and Muckland. So not Buckland in this game, but Muckland. So it must be time to go east. Fordo slouched against the handrail on the east end of the old Brand Name Bridge. The east road led east, past Muck Hill into Muckland. The river gurgled damply. Let's go east again. Fordo was travelling through Muckland, passing Muck Hill. To the east was his house at Prick Hollow. To the west, the Brand Name River and the Shire. So the house name of Crick Hollow again been changed to Prick Hollow. Let's go east. Fordo leaned casually against the wall of his house. The road led east to the border of the Shire and west. Well, not much to see in his house, but let's go in. Fordo relaxed in his house at Prick Hollow. He felt safe inside these 4 paper-thin walls as he sat watching the cheery open fire burning steadily. Let's exit again and carry on, and not surprisingly, east. Fordo was at the hedge, which comprehensively blocked the way east. Path led north, south and west back to Muckland. Or in this case we go south. Fordo gazed down absently at the large under-hedge tunnel, which not unexpectedly ran under the great hedge, providing a way into the old forest. Well, I think we know we need to go into the forest here. Let's go down. Fordo stood at the forest end of the tunnel, to the west of the grim hedge, to the east the grim old forest. And here we are inside the forest. Fordo was in the old forest and was very lost. So again, this is another maze of the sort that were popular with games in the mid-80s, so nothing that's not amenable to a bit of mapping, but yes, with similar location descriptions, just to provide a slight challenge. So let's head north from here. Again, we can say we've got that's a very similar looking location, the same picture, same description. If we go east, Fordo stood on the riverbank, greatly relieved to be out of the old forest, even though he had no idea where he now was. A large willow tree with long rubbery branches stood close by, and the air was filled with a strange fragrance. Spam, Murky, and Pimply appeared. The fragrance took effect, and Fordo collapsed against the old willow tree and fell asleep. After a while, he slowly began to come to. Fordo was trapped inside the old willow tree. All was dark and stuffy. Now, I do remember when I originally played the game, I did get stuck at this location for quite some time. Obviously, if you stay within the willow tree, it's not too comfortable. You start to get squashed. But actually, the obvious answer, which I should have guessed at the time, is to shout for help. To shout help. Fordo cried for help. By a very improbable coincidence, he was rescued by a small man wearing fluorescent pixie boots, who very casually told the tree to lay off, which it did. Fordo was on the bank of the river. The old willow tree stood motionless and silent. A narrow path led east. We can see here who we've been rescued by, not Tom Bombadil, but Tim Bombadil. Well, hi, suggested Tim. Okay, let's move on. East, Fordo was following the narrow winding path which cut through the trees roughly east to west. On a hill to the west he saw a yellow light shining out from one of the windows of Tim's old tumble-down shack. I think that may be a typo in the adventure. Obviously we've just come from the west, so Tim's shack is going to be to the east, so let's carry on. Fordo playfully tripped Tim up. "Grenade," observed Tim as he crashed to the ground, and a set of hypodermic syringes fell out of his pockets. Question mark, said Spam. "Whoop," began Murky. Well, guys, you know, old Tim's a diabetic. Yeah, that's it, a diabetic." He picked up his utensils and smiled. Question mark, repeated Spam thoughtfully. So Tim's a diabetic, or at least that's his story. Let's go east. Fordo stood outside Tim's little shack. Path led west and south down the hill into the trees and onto the downs respectively. "Come on inside and meet McGill Hashbury," said Tim. Well, let's carry on in then. Fordo relaxed. Tim's house was of an unusual style, being only one room which served as various rooms at different times. The tatty basketwork mats on the earthen floor served as seats, beds and tables. "Wow," groaned Hashbury, and collapsed into a heap. "Hey, well, don't let old Hashy bug you. I's here a day to go." Let's leave Tim's house. And I think Tim's leaving us as well. "Well, looky here. I'm laying some real good stuff on you guys, but right now old Tim's got split." "Bye," said Tim. He turned and wandered away. As if we look at our inventory, we can see Tim seems to have given us some magic beans. Now, we may make use of those later, but I think initially my advice is not to eat them. May not be as healthy as you might expect. Anyway, we've gone south onto this very bleak looking area. So Fordo was lost, wandering about on the downs. So yet another maze, but let's carry on going south. Very similar looking location. Fordo was lost, wandering about on the downs, but at this point Fordo noticed a trendy Barrow Wight. The trendy Barrow Wight began to jive, then he began to chant in the form of a rap. Well, hello little boggit, what can I do for you? If you're going to Morona, then I may just have a clue. Watched by Fordo, he started breakdancing and doing robotics and body popping. If we wait, we might see his clue. Pepper, said the trendy Barrow Wight. Okay, let's remember that clue of Pepper and head on. So we'll first of all go back to the north again. We're still lost. West, another very similar looking location, and let's go north. Fordo stood and gazed down the Great East Road. To the east he could see the small settlement of Wee, but to the west the road dipped into a sinister and dark avenue overhung by tall trees. Well, the west seems too ominous, so let's go east. Fordo found himself outside the debatably pleasant village of Wee, said to be the centre of the Boggit's tourist industry. The road led in, east and west. Well, let's go and visit Wee. Fordo stood outside the Puny Prancer Inn. A road led out of Wee. Now, if I recall from the book, I think this was originally the Prancing Pony. Now become the Puny Prancer. Let's go in. Fordo surveyed the scene inside the Puny Prancer. 8 completely stoned trolls lay in a tidy heap in an alcove. A small army of dwarves sat at the bar playing cards and designing cigarette machines, and a tall lizard was showing a bullhog how well his pretty elven maiden prisoner fitted onto his tail. The usual. At this point, Fordo noticed Butterballs, the innkeeper. I really quite like the play on words here with the stoned trolls, because not only, for those of you that have read The Hobbit, might remember that trolls turn to stone at sunrise, but also another meaning of the word stoned, which may be more expected in these circumstances. Suddenly, with a resounding crash, the doors were smashed open and in walked a tall, odd, idiotically dressed stranger. Watched by all, he made his way inconspicuously over to Fordo and waited, trying not to look quite as suspicious as he was. Well, who do we have here? You may remember in the book a character called Strider or Aragorn. In this case it's Aragont. I guess supposedly a pun on the word arrogant, although spelt not quite the same way. Anyway, we've met Aragont. Let's leave. And let's exit Wee. Head back to outside of Wee. Let's go east. Okay, this is looks like a very secret pathway here that no one would identify. Fordo stood on the road which led east to Rivendell and west to Wee. A large neon sign indicated the turn off north to a secret pathway. Well, let's go north and visit the secret pathway. As you can see, quite subtle. Fordo trekked ruggedly along the well-trodden 4-lane secret path known only to the strangers who guarded the Shire. The path bent east and west. Let's go east. Fordo was on the road which led east towards the Dark Mountain and west. So go east again. Fordo was now on the east road skirting the southern edge of the tall mountain. Well, let's visit the mountain. Let's go north. Fordo was on the steep rocky path on the side of the mountain. The said path led up and south. And we go up. Fordo perched on the summit of Angham Suim, or as it was better known, Featherwop. Now you may remember Weathertop from the book. So Featherwop being the spoof name for that. A large rock lay flat on the ground beside a rough path which led down. Let's take a look at that rock. Examine the rock. And fluorescent skibbly, presumed it meant scribbly, skibbly runes was written on the rock. Grandalf was here. Okay, we know Grandalf has been here before us, but let's get the pepper, and if you remember the clue from the Barrow Wight, the pepper may come in handy. Oh, here's a random message. Hello, began Arrogant. I am Arrogant, son of Artifacts, and I have many names. Shut your head, suggested a voice nearby. Bog off, remarked Spam. Okay, let's go down again, and back down to the path. Now we carry on east. Fordo found himself on the east road. To the east he saw the bridge spanning the river, and beyond the road to Rivendell. Oh, let's carry on east. Fordo stood on the western end of the toll bridge. Below, the river bubbled furiously and sent up a fine spray into the air. The road led away west. Well, we'll carry on east. Fordo was on the east end of the toll bridge. A road wound away east towards Rivendell. East again. Fordo was on the road between Rivendell and the bridge. And so he trudged on, and from a group of distant trees there came the sound of some great bird being briefly but noisily ill. I'll go east again. Fordo took in his surroundings. Around him were scattered the buildings of Rivendell. A large house stood here. Well, I think this is our first destination, Rivendell, so let's enter. Fordo looked about him. He was in the house of Smelrond in the quiet settlement of Rivendell. In the room were some chairs and a long table. An open door led outside. So, meet your Uncle Bimbo here. Smelrond, the lunchmaker, Grandalf, Giblet, I think Gimli from the original, Legoland, being a plain words of Legolas, and Borrower, another name for Boromir. You must go quickly, Smelrond advised them amid the roar of Domorian tanks and helicopters. The enemy is becoming somewhat suspicious of my affairs with ring-bearing boggits. So saying, he waited for a large battle troll breaking down the back door and showed Fordo outside. Sadly, though, Fordo could carry no more. I think Smelrond's tried to give us some things here. If we look, well, we can see the sword spring. I think we were supposed to be given. Let's drop the elves. We don't need that, and get the sword. Okay, let's carry on our journey east. Fordo stood at a road junction somewhere between Rivendell and the Whiffy Mountains. 3 roads led south, east, and west. At this point, Fordo noticed a squadron of black spy crows flying low overhead. Well, let's say hello to the crows. Good day, squawked a crow from somewhere high above. Okay, let's go east. Fordo shivered in the high pass Cadaverous. Snow fell and was blown to deep drifts. The pass blocked. The only exit from this cold was west. Let's go west then. Back to the crows. Go south. Fordo peered at the distance. He was on a small hill. The road led north and east. At this point, Fordo noticed several ravenous wolves. Well, I don't know if these wolves are going to pose much of a problem for us. Let's say hello to them. Festive greetings, observed one of the wolves. Okay, let's carry on east. Fordo was following a dried up stream bed. To the east rose the great dark cliffs at the Morona Gate, while to the west were some low hills. Let's go east again. Another picture. Fordo stood at a great dam which held back a vast pond. A path led north round it, and a narrow road went west beside the insignificant stream that emerged from the base of the massive dam. Okay, let's go north. Fordo edged his way along the narrow east-west ledge, which ran around the northern shore of the sinister pond. The deep, dark water rippled slightly. He shuddered. Finally, let's go east. Fordo stood in the shadow of the great Morona Gate. High cliffs towered far above him. The dark pool lapped softly onto the rocky shore. It was all too quiet. Okay, we've reached the Morona Gate. Now, our next task is to get in. If you remember the clue from the Barrow Wight, he's saying if you're going to Morona, his clue was pepper. Well, so we picked up the pepper earlier, so at this point we'll drop the pepper. Fordo dropped the pepper. Achoo, sneezed Giblet, blowing a massive hole in the rock face. Through this the company did wander. A huge slimy monster branching a putty knife rose out of the lake and rebuilt the cliff. So I think we know we'll not be coming back this way. But luckily that's the end of part 1, so well done, you've completed part 1 of Lord of the Rings. Here is your password to part 2. Good time. So that brings us to the end of part 1. Hopefully I'll see you again soon for part 2 of Lord of the Rings.